Good morning, everyone. Here we are at week number 7. It's just this week and next week, and we'll be finished with our term. So let's see what we've got going on. All right, last week you were working on the information for your project. I hope to get those graded a little bit faster this week so that you can continue on with your presentation. You're going to work in your SUMO web text in chapter 7, and it's all about evaluating communication in science. So I want you to rewind just a little bit in your mind how you've already discussed the audience that you are going to present to and how you have to modify your message based on that audience. Well, this is sort of the opposite. So when you read something out there in science, you need to evaluate who is giving you this information. Are they giving you good information? Are they reliable? Are they credible? Remember how we went through that before? And what's their point of view? So that's really important for you to understand in order to evaluate a source. So that's what we're doing this week. We're evaluating communication in science by reading and analyzing a report on what? The Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010. So you'll take a look at that so you can analyze the, what you're reading, the article that you're reading. Okay, you're also going to put together your rough draft of your speaker's notes for your presentation. So in the very last week, which is crazy, but the very last week, you are going to put together a presentation of your topic, 5 to 7 slides, I would say 5 to 10-ish slides on your particular topic, whether it's electric cars, conservation of biodiversity, ocean pollution, whatever it is, you're putting together your final presentation next week. But this week, you're going to put together the speaker's notes. So when you make a presentation, everything that you're going to say is not on a slide. And that's where the speaker's notes come in. They help to remind you, by you looking at the screen where your slide is, they help to remind you all the points that you're supposed to make about this particular information on the slide. Okay? So here is what I would suggest. Here's the rubric for putting together these speaker's notes. You are going to make 5 to 10-ish slides. You ought to have one slide for each of these sections except that articulation or response. So you should have a slide on the scientific background. Now take a look at what you need to include on this. Provides brief overview of scientific background of issue in question and explains how the issue relates to natural sciences. Okay, so whatever your topic is, electric vehicles, for example. All right, what's the scientific background for this? You already looked this up. You have 3 sources, at least. And what's your question? Okay, so the information about this, you're going to have a slide that shows us a picture, but what are you going to say about that? That's where the speaker's notes come in. So I would have a slide, I'm trying to use my mouse here, a slide on the scientific background, the audience, the empirical evidence, why this affects anybody personally like you, the investigation, and the message. I would have a slide for each of those. But you're also going to need the speaker's notes for these to explain this part right here, where you explain each of these. Articulation and response is just that you use the right grammar and spelling and all that. Okay? Now, when you get ready to put your speaker's notes on your slides, this is where you do that. So if you open up PowerPoint, you'll see this funky little line, and it's usually way down here at the bottom. If you click on it and drag up, you will have a space here, and that's where you put your speaker's notes on your slides next week. This is where your explanation goes for whatever is written on that slide. This is where you're reminded about what you're supposed to tell, having to do with that slide, where you're making your points. Now, you can make these bullet points. You can make them paragraphs. It's up to you with the speaker's notes. For me, I would make bullet points because I just have a few things outlined there because I know what I'm going to say. I just have to be reminded not to forget anything, right? So that's what the bullet points are for. So that's where the speaker's notes end up. Make sure you use the guidelines or rubric for the speaker's notes so that you don't leave anything out, because as you can tell, I'm going to be looking for each of those sections. That's what the rubric looks like. That's how I grade. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. All right, and with that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week this week. This is our next to the last week. I do want to remind you about the deadline for this course. The deadline is Sunday, October 23rd. Everything has to be turned in by before midnight of that night. That's the deadline. You can't add anything after that point. I can't add anything after that point. I can grade, but I can't add anything. So don't send me your stuff because I can't put it in there. And neither can you. So you need to realize this. If we need to look to ask for an incomplete for you, realize that you have to have successfully completed 70% of the course before I can even ask that question. And they ask me that. And if I put in no, they're going to say, well, somebody will come back to me and say, well, why not? Because that's the requirement. So anyway, if you're having any issues or anything going on that we need to consider, please let me know, m.sigmon@snhu.edu, and we will see what we can do. All right, with that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful week this week.